All right, let's continue on. For those joining randomly in the middle of this playlist, stick around. We are making an app from the very start, first line of code all the way through to release. This will be quite a long series. Feel free to watch the others, of course. And I do have a membership program now on YouTube. So if you want to join it, you can get access to the source code as we're building it, and some other perks like a Discord server on and cool emojis and all the good stuff. So just wanted to plug that real quick, sponsor of this video. And we're going to get into it. So we left off last time kind of having this way to search for a place. And assuming everything's running, if I search for, let's search for McDonald's. I'm actually curious one thing about it. Hey, it is actually somehow using my location data. Oh, because that makes sense. Because I'm running my server locally right now, I am essentially getting back data based on that IP address. And I think that's just how Google kind of works. It looks at the IP address and it goes, hey, we're going to use this to find relevant things close to you. And I was confused for a second because like we're building this completely server side, but of course my server is running, somewhere. Happens to be running right here. Now, what we'll be doing in the future, once we get like geolocation stuff in, maybe sooner than later, we're going to update our endpoint to actually allow the user's latitude and longitude to be sent up, because there is a way when we do our query to actually kind of say close to this area, because that's going to be important. We're going to want people, doing that. So yeah, that's just something to say. But yeah, we can search for stuff, but nothing really happens yet. So let's figure out how to do that. We'll go back, I'll just save this file. We'll go back to our search component. Now there's some things I want to do. We made this debouncing search bar. I think there's going to be something that in theory we might use multiple times, not just for this. So I want to kind of create some helper things that we can pass through. So the first will be a bool of autofocus. And we can go this.autofocus equals false, for example. And instead of just having it hard-coded here, we'll use our autofocus. Now, because this is a stateful widget, we actually have to capture it through the widget.autofocus. That way, in our search component, where we have this, we can go autofocus true. There we go. Some other things, maybe we want some hint text. Final string, let's try hint text. We might, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, because let's see what this actually allows. Yeah, hint text, it is just like that. And we're going to actually, make it a nullable string. So it can just do what it wants. So this is an optional parameter, this dot hint text. And we'll use widget.hintText here. Back over here, we can pass in some hint text. Let's try search for venue. Or yeah, search for. Well, we can maybe it's even just like search ... something like that. Let's save both of those. And we do have search here, which is nice, and the autofocus is happening. Another thing we might want to customize is the debounce. So we can have something like debounce ms stored in seconds, and this will be a double. And we can go this dot debounce, and let's just set up a default of 500. And the reason I'm doing 0.0 here, you don't really have to. It knows it's a double, but I like the convention of when we're setting a constant for a double to have the 0.0 or like point whatever it is. It just helps you remember when you're kind of in here, oh, this is a double. So here, although actually, sorry, milliseconds will be an int because we can't have 0.5 milliseconds. I mean, you can, but we'd have to use a different unit. So we'll use 500 as the default, and then here we can do widget.debounce. And because this is a const, we actually can't do that, but we can remove the const. There we go. So that's enough for now, just so that we can reuse this potentially in other places we want to debounce. Okay, so we're going to let people select a location, and that's going to essentially update our list here. Now on our list tile, we're going to want to have an on-tap event that is going to do something with this. Now we already have, I believe, let's actually look at our venue edit screen. do we have a provider for this? Let's look at the venue form component. Where does it get it from? Venue gets passed in. Yeah, we might have to rework this in order for this to work the way I want. But essentially we want to kind of pass that, process some data, and actually set these things. So I think we are going to actually do a bit of a refactor here to make this work a lot better. So let's see. Essentially what I want to have is a provider that's going to represent a venue that you are essentially editing or creating. So let's make some space here, and we'll go into our venue and providers. We're going to have a venue edit provider.dart. Okay, so this, call it this, and it's going to be equal, or it's going to extend rather, the our generated class. And we'll need an override on, oh, okay, that's not really what I wanted, but on the build function. We're just going to return something. We'll get there in a minute. We need to make sure to denote this with Riverpod, and let's do keep alive. We can test turning off keep alive and seeing if it will still work, but I think we might want this here. Now, the state for our form, we could just use a venue itself as the state, and that would be possibly fine, but there might be some other things we want to be tracking as we go. So I think we're going to do this a little bit differently. I think we do not have a state folder yet, although I think we've been using the models folder for this. So let's do venue edit, or maybe it's like edit venue state, venue, maybe venue form state .dart. So we're going to have a class called venue form state right here, and it's going to have various things, which we'll get to. But essentially, this is what we're going to return here, and we want to mark that. Now, we're going to do this as a sealed final. How do you do this again? Sealed class. Something like that. I'm just going to pull up something real quick. Okay, actually, this will just be a class called venue form state. And what we want in here is a venue. So we'll just auto import that, and we'll call it venue. Some other things we might want to be tracking is whether we're loading. So let's do is loading. And also, we might have an error at some point. So we're going to maybe track that here. So now let's create this. We can go quick fix, create const like this. And because this is an error, or this is nullable, we don't necessarily need the required on that, but we want required on the game, or sorry, on the venue. And loading, yeah, let's just make it required when we create this. Okay, so now what we want to do is essentially have something that's like, what's our empty or initial venue look like? So we'll make this a static thing on here, it's going to return a venue, and we'll just call it initial venue. And here we're essentially going to return, and we've already done this somewhere. I'm going to try and remember where. I'm just going to search for venue and see. Oh, here it is. Yes. So I'm just going to return this. This is kind of like our empty venue. Ooh, we have an auth state.userid. Is that going to be possible? I mean, I guess we could pass it in. User ID. Let's do it that way. Like that. And maybe we'll just make this kind of like this so that when we're passing it in, we kind of know what it is. And this will be something we'll also have to pass in. So we'll just keep it like that for now. So this is kind of like our initial, like, clean, empty, hasn't been saved version of a venue. Static, yeah, we're going to return that. Okay, so now what we want to do, this is just a pattern I like, is we're going to create a couple factories here. We're going to have a factory for our venue form state dot initial. And all this is going to return is our venue form state like this. We're going to pass in our initial venue, which similarly now we're going to have a user ID. We might rework this if this pass through gets really annoying. And is loading will be false just by default. Okay, so that is kind of something we can call to be like, get me my initial state. It'll be good for clearing things, etc., etc. We're going to want one for loading. So I'm just going to copy this. And we will do loading. And, oh, sorry, this actually won't be a factory. This is just going to be a method we can call on the existing state that is essentially going to return back a modified version of it. So for loading, we'll just do this. And we don't care about this. We're just going to use whatever venue is in memory right now. Whatever's in the state of this, we will go and we're returning a new version of it. And is loading should be true. And we'll just also make the error null in case there is an error at any time. If this isn't making a lot of sense right now, it will shortly. We're also going to have one for success. So this is like we've successfully saved or successfully loaded from the server, in which case we do need a venue to be passed in. Let's just call, actually this will still link to that. Yep, that's fine. So we'll have that. And then we might also have one for an error. And, oh, didn't like the word error. Wonder why. Error is already defined. Oh, because we're using that, yes. So we'll call it failure instead, which is I think what we're doing anyways in other places. And here we need to pass in the message called error, and we'll just set error to error. When there's an error, we're not loading anymore. We got an error of some sort. And venue, we'll use whatever venue is currently in here. All right, then we need a way to actually update something. So we'll do venue form state update. And we'll pass in a venue, and we'll just basically pass this stuff. Is loading. Oh, why was is loading? This should be false. Loading is true. Okay, success, failure. Is loading when we update will be false. In theory, we could use, yeah, that makes sense. And error is null, something worked. And we'll have something for clearing as well. So clear will kind of be the same as initial. But no, we don't want to do a factory here. So we're going to have clear. And we're just going to return our initial venue. And that means for clearing, we actually have to pass this in. Again, this might change. We might decide to do this a little bit differently. Required int user ID. And we want to take the initial venue. We want to say loading, and we want to do null. Okay, cool. I guess also on clear, we could just return the factory version of initial. That might be cleaner. Let's see if that'll work. Yeah, let's do that. That way, if we make a change in our initial state, we'll get used to it. Okay, so this is essentially what we want to return from our state here. Yep, venue form state. And what we're going to actually return out of the build function is venue form state dot initial. And we got to pass in a user ID. So this is where, yeah, things get a little bit complicated. Now we can get the user ID. We have access to ref, although we're not seeing it right now because we have to run our generator to, actually make this all work. But we can do what we're doing here, right? We can actually grab this. So let's just get something called final user ID equals this, auth state is, yeah, this is a little bit annoying, but once we get it, we'll be good. So we'll read the auth provider. We want to check to make sure they are logged in, which we need to import. And assuming it's not null, so I'm kind of just moving this logic here. We're going to erase that very soon. If it does not equal null, then we essentially are going to return this with this user ID. And we could do that. otherwise, if any of this, if we don't actually get to that return, we're going to return venue form state. Can I do, yeah, dot. We're going to need to actually make a factory for failure. So let's do that. Once we get this in place, it's actually a really nice pattern for working with kind of like our data of our forms and beyond forms. Okay, so we'll need a factory. We're just going to copy this one. We can do, I think, dot failure. They can be the same name because this is actually a factory. It's static. And here we're going to have a string of the error message. So we'll have is loading false, error, false, error, error. And then the venue itself, can that be null? I guess, we could just kind of, there's going to be an error. We can just pass in, 0 as kind of like the user ID. Again, we might rework how this works because, yeah, passing stuff through can be a little bit annoying. But now we can return failure, and we can say here the error is user is not, or just maybe we just say not authenticated. Okay, so in order to get access to these things, I'm actually just going to comment this out for now so it doesn't create any issues. And we're going to run our build runner. If I can get to it. Build runner. We'll just run it. So, well, we missed one thing. I always miss one thing. Part of venue edit provider.g.dunt. There's a chance we catch it in time. We probably haven't. Okay, I'm going to just rerun it again. Perfect. Now we should be able to safely uncomment this. And we got to import our auth provider. There we go. Okay, so basically whenever this private provider first gets read, it's going to, do this lovely stuff for us. Cool. So now we can refactor this form to actually make use of this. So there's some things we want to have in here. Let's go to our form component, and we're actually going to pull these things all to be part of here. And I'm going to put it after the build. We're going to have these things. So let's get material imported, which should give us all of that. And that's fine for now. And let us figure some stuff out. Okay, so this is I'm just going to probably remake this. It's just going to be easier. So let's make a little more room. And let's make a stateless consumer, because we do need access to ref. And we'll call it venue form component. The difference here is we are not going to make it a stateful widget. We'll just be relying on ref here. Okay, so first of all, in here now, do I want to? Oh, it's fine. In here, let's get access to the form provider equals ref.read. And here we want to use our venue form provider, which, oh, sorry. Yeah, maybe this should be called form provider, not edit provider. Let's rename this symbol. Actually, the rename symbol won't matter because we're going to be regenerating anyways. So let's just grab that, and we'll save. And let's also rename this file, which means we need to change this form. Rename to form. And we can just delete the generated file because we're going to regenerate it and it'll be a new name. Okay, let's just rerun this. And while that's running, we're going to just do .notifier here. So that'll be access to our provider. We can also get access to our state by going ref.watch, our venue form provider, which eventually we'll have working. Let's see if we can. Oh, duh. We just want to call this venue form because the provider automatically gets added. So let's save that again, run that. That's what I was saying. Venue form provider. It's trying to get me to call it venue form provider provider. All right, we'll let that load. Then what I'm going to do is actually just grab our form right here, because we already kind of have some stuff here. So let's grab this, and we can probably just get rid of all of this now. And this is what we're going to return. I'm returning a return. There we go. So for form key now, let's import these. Any form provider. So now we can actually go provider.form key, and that'll just access this form key here. Similarly, for our controllers, we can do the same thing. All right, next, what I want to do is I don't want this business logic within our UI. We're actually going to move it to here. So let's make a, it'll be future void, I think, save. And we can just basically take this. We have the form key. Oh, right. Look at big async. So basically, we're going to validate. OK, cool. That return type might change. Maybe not. Then we are going to essentially just do this piece by piece, because it's going to be slightly different. Because we don't have access to venue exactly, but we have state.venue. So that's like our v, which is cool. And maybe we call this submit instead of save. I think that's nicer. And you know what? Let's actually return a bool here. That way we can kind of work with, you know, something being success or not. Okay, so what we want to do, we have our v, and we can actually call this venue now because we no longer have the same word in scope. So we'll do final venue equals, we're basically taking our state.venue using the copy with. Copy with is built into the generated code that Serverpod's doing, much like if you're using freeze or writing it yourself. And now what we can do that we have this constructed, we can go state equals state.loading. So this is kind of nice because now what this is doing is it's taking whatever venue we already have, which is like our state.venue. It's not modifying that, but it's setting loading to true, which then in our UI we can actually react to. Now here we're going to go final result equals await, and yeah, it's just going to be basically this right here. Like typing it, we already have it. But we do need our venue service provider, and we're going to save our venue. Now, is it worth, yeah, so we'll do that. Then we're going to essentially return our result.fold. And the reason we're returning is I want to return either true or false. So here we have something like an error, which we'll do something with. We'll just return false. And we are going to do something else there, but I'm just getting it in place. And if there's a success, what is this at this point? This will be the updated venue. So we'll call it v here just so it doesn't get confusing and conflict with that. And what we can do now when it's success, we can go state equals state.success and pass in that v. So we get the updated version from the server that, you know, maybe it's normalized some data, it's given an ID, all that kind of stuff. Oh, we need to do this. And we want to return true here. In the case of an error, we can go state equals state.failure. So we'll take whatever our current state is and pass this error through, which is something we can watch for again. Okay, so I think that is most of these things. We also have things like doing our toast, which unfortunately doesn't quite work from here because we don't actually have access to context. Let me think about that for a sec. I mean, we could, what we could actually return from this, I've never done it this way before, but let's try it. We could return an either here, right? A string or a string. Let's do that for now. Basically, like, it's going to be a string either way, but this will allow us to define, was the string an error or was the string this? String. Yeah, so in the case that here we can actually return left and say invalid form or something. I don't love this though. I don't love it, but we're gonna move forward with it. And in this case, we will just return left and actually pass the error in. So we're updating the state. Do I like this? I'm trying to think what I want to solve here. Because doing a toast message, you know what? No, we're going to let this be simpler. I'm also thinking ahead because we are going to be doing internationalization at some point, like localization, language, translations, all that kind of stuff. And I don't really want our providers to, have to necessarily have access to context in order to do that. So I think just returning true and false is fine. And then in our UI, if it's true, we can just actually then do the toast message and do all that stuff. Now, what else do we have in here? And so success, cool, we can skip that. That's essentially the equivalent of doing this. We will do the toast message in the UI because we'll have context there. And then we actually want to refresh our venue list because something has changed, right? Cool. And then the context.pop, again, that's something with context. We want to do that in our UI, keep everything context-wise there. That's the goal. We'll see. Okay, so now in our all of this stuff here, I'm going to keep it for now just so we don't forget. But what we will actually do is go provider.submit like this. And we can go final success equals provider. As long as we await it, we'll have success here. It's either going to be bool. And we can say if success, then we can do something. We basically want this. We want these two things. I'm copying all three, but it's easier just to copy three and remove one. That's essentially what we want. There we go, context.pop. And let me just get rid of stuff. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we are having this error here. It's saying, or warning, I guess, don't use build context across async gaps. And that's because when somebody's having asynchronously, Flutter can't really determine, or at least your IDE and the compiler and everything doesn't necessarily know, is the context changed? Do we have access to it? Things can go wrong. Maybe it already popped. So all we have to do is wrap this in context.mounted. .mounted. And that will get rid of that warning, and we're good. So yeah, this should work the same way now. We are having an error here because, yeah, things have changed. That's fine. We will get to that. Oh, it's because it wants to pass in menu. We actually don't need to do that anymore. State. So let's do some things with our state. Let's just look at this form again. Oh, we can't even get to it, sorry. We're working towards getting to it. We'll come back to this. Let's do to-do, watch for errors, and loading, just so we can actually make use of this. But let's actually get us navigating to this form. So our edit screen now, we don't need to pass in a venue. That's fine, because the venue is going to actually not be part of the UI. It's going to be part of the provider, which is a lot nicer. All right, then we will Google Place. Let's do an old-fashioned close everything, save everything, close everything. Let's open up our screen, venue root screen. So we do want to push to this, right? And this is where we actually want to work with our provider to set some information. So let's just do a to-do for that. To-do, set info on provider. Cool. But what we want to do now is actually do context.push. And we're going to push to our venue edit screen .route. And here, what we did before is we were actually doing 0. And that kind of denotes it's a new venue. So we'll push there and see if that works. Okay. Add. Let's search for McDonald's again. Click on this, and it did push us there, which is nice. Okay, cool. We're going to our form. Actually, I guess we can test. Let's see if this even works. This is test 1, 2, 3, and I think these are optional fields anyways. We'll go save. It pushed us back. Now the problem is we actually need to go one more back, but that is still working. I think we can fix that. Instead of context.push, I think we can do context.replace, because we don't really want people coming back to that screen. If they really wanted to come back to it, we'll just get them to click this again. So let's do McDonald's again, because it's the only thing I can think of. McDonald's. And our form still has the previous data, which makes sense. We'll get into that in a bit. But now if I actually click save, we're gonna have a duplicate one, and something went wrong. Maybe. Did something go wrong? I wonder if I replace is not the way to do this. Wait, let's see. If I go back, I should. No, okay, that's not the problem. Something went wrong. Okay, we'll come back to that. I'm not trying to solve that issue right now. Okay, what we really want to do is have a way when you select a location to actually set some defaults on the venue. So let's go to our venue form provider right here, and we're going to add, we already have our submit, which I like to kind of keep at the bottom, but we're going to have just some void helpers here. One of them is going to be set name, and this will get a string. We'll call it name. And here we can go state equals state.update, and here we'll just take our state.venue.copyWith and actually pass in the name being the name. And we do, when we set the name, we also want to make sure our name controller.text is, and actually now that I think about it, we don't really actually have to set the name on the state, because we don't really care about the state until the end anyway. So really we can just go name controller.text equals name. And let's do a trim on it. Why not? So what we would basically go here is ref.read our venue form provider.notifier, which I'm actually just going to capture this into a variable called provider, or maybe we'll call it form provider. We can't call it venue form provider because we already have that. Form provider is totally fine, and let's just save so that goes. And we want to go form provider.setName, and here we want to take our place.name. Okay, cool. So we'll do that, and let's just see if that even works. So add location, let's do our lovely McDonald's. And there we go. We have our text already getting put in there. Now there are some other things that we want. We want to obviously get our set, let's set location, and maybe this will take a double of latitude and a double of longitude. Yep. And in fact, you know, we can actually, I'm going to keep this, but actually there's a cool way we could probably do this, right? We already have something called a Google Place. So we can do set, we can do something like set from Google Place. That's maybe not the best word, but basically what we can do now is we can call something like set name, and that's why partly why I'm keeping this, partly why I'm not, but we can go place.name. Some other things we can do is we can take our, we can go state equals state.copy or state.update, take our state.venue.copyWith, and we can set our latitude equal to place.latitude, longitude equal to place.longitude. What else does a place have that I'm not thinking of? Latitude, longitude, address. Yeah, address. And we'll use address long, I think, for this. And actually, we might just get rid of the idea of long, and I think we're just going to get rid of that soon. This is all part of the process, right? Okay, so we'll do all that stuff. We'll set name, and actually, we're just going to simplify this. We'll use place.name.trim. We don't really need this. So what we can do here is go set from Google Place and pass in the entire place, and that will handle all these things here. Okay, cool. So that will set from Google Place. It will essentially update that, and it will also give us a latitude and longitude and an address. I think it's a good time for a short refactor. Let's go back to our server side, and let's open up our venue model. And let's actually get rid of short and long. It's just confusing. We're just going to have address. The short one can just be like a, one-line ellipse version of it. Website URL, primary image URL. Cool. So let's save that. Let's stop our server. Let's do, and I'm actually curious what happens we're probably going to lose our data with the way this migration works because we actually, I wonder if we do this in a couple steps actually. Okay, what I'm going to do is just remove address long. Okay, and we're going to run serverpod generate just to like generate the code. So all I've done right now is removed address long. Then we'll do serverpod create migration, I believe. So here we go, address long a table will be dropped. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. We want it to be done. So we're going to do force to drop that thing. Okay, cool. Now let's see if we can just change this to address without losing our data. That's what I'm trying to do here. It's not the end of the world if we do, but and now let's just do, I think I have to run generate again. Let's actually just see. I'm not going to run generate this time. We're learning together. Yeah, that's what I figured would happen. Let's just double check. We actually, I don't think have to run generate before doing the migration, but let's just try it one more time and then we'll know for sure. Okay, migration. So here we get a column address store table will be dropped. Okay, it'll be dropped. And then that's one error. It's saying we're dropping it. But then adding this, I think, is creating an error. Now, there's something I was thinking about in bed is Serverpod looking at these in a certain order. So, yeah, that's what I figured. Okay, that's totally fine. We're just gonna do the force. So this will actually drop the table. And we created it. So now let's actually start the server again with the apply dash migrations, which will run through. It's going to drop that table. It's going to create a new one, meaning our data is going to be gone. In theory, although, yeah, now we have, of course, we have some errors because address short doesn't exist, all these kinds of things. So let's go through and find these. Interesting that I don't see the errors here. It's probably because the client needs to refresh. Let me open up our venue and see if that, yeah, then we start to get these errors. So let's just go through these. So this is just going to be called address now. And similar to this, although, yeah, we're going to get, this is going to be gone too, but we'll just fix it for now. And this will just be called address, place an address. Easy, easy refactor. It's beautiful. And that's something that's really great about Serverpod is like, you know, if you were doing this with a, you know, a more traditional backend that you don't have the type safety across, like you're going to find those errors on your own unless you have like, I guess, some, you know, good way of documenting stuff and whatever. That just, you know, worked. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so we can get rid of this to do. And let's now just rebuild. And let's create, I guess, our first venue. No venues found. Okay. So let's really shake it up and look for a Burger King. Burger King. Okay, cool. So we got the name, and we don't actually show anything right now for the Latin long. In fact, we're not going to show that as anything anyways. We'll just be showing a something on a map. I realized one thing. I meant to do one other thing in this refactor, and this is just a good time to do it. What we're going to actually do, maybe before address, is have a Google Place ID, which is going to be a string. I suppose we can make it null, because maybe there's cases where we create one completely custom. So let's not make it a required field, but I want to actually store this. So let's just run our migration again without the force, because I want to see this work. It looks like adding a field is fine with their migrations. Cool. And then we'll start it again by applying the migration. And now that means we can actually go, although Google Place ID probably won't show up yet, but if we go into something that gets us access to a venue, let's just kind of click through, we should see Google Place ID not yet, because I didn't run the generator, I assume. Serverpod generate. And we don't have to apply migrations, so not that it matters, but it wouldn't have done anything, but let's just keep it clean. Okay, So now we should see in here Google Place ID. Awesome. When we are setting this Google Place ID, we can use place dot, I think it's just called place ID. There we go. The reason I want to do that is I want to actually store the place ID in the database, because then if we ever want to gather more information about it, we saw in that JSON file in the last video, there's a lot of cool info, like, you know, how many stars it has and various other things. We can also go and fetch its website. We can do a lot of things like that. Let's just store it. Then we can always, like, you know, be updating that data in the future after, you know, this is launched. Okay, so let's build again and let's test this out. So let's just search for Odd Burger, which is a little vegan burger place. And I'm not going to forget if bio is required. Let's find out. It isn't. And there we go. We got our Odd Burger right here, and everything's good, and we can see it. Okay, cool. So that is nice because we're kind of like letting someone, you know, I'm just going to search for the burger now. I can't think of other burger places. Harvey's, there we go. Instead of them having to, you know, fill this stuff out, you know, we're getting that. Now, what is additionally cool is if we actually open up our database. There's many ways we could do this, but let's just look at our database itself, which I know is a little bit small. Errors. Okay, let's see. Public venue. Let's actually look at the data of this. We're actually going to see the address was stored in here, which is super cool. And we have our latitude and longitude, which came from that. And we're storing that Google Place ID. Awesome. So that's helpful because now we'll be able to show things on a map. Where are we at? We're at a great time to cut this video. Trying to keep these all 40 minutes, and it's been working out pretty well so far if you look at the video history. So thanks for watching. In the next one, now that we have things like latitude and longitude, I think it only makes sense to get a map going so that we can, I think first, you know, just getting a preview of where it is, maybe allowing the user to, you know, kind of maybe modify the location, like maybe the Google Map data is a little bit off and they want to say, no, it's actually at this corner. We might allow that. That would probably be a little in the future though. And then lastly, we're going, or not lastly, but we also want to, in this list view of all of our venues, we're going to have like a map version of it. And maybe the map version is the default. I haven't decided yet. Please feel free to vote on it. Yeah, so we'll get into mapping in the next one and get some cool visuals happening. So thanks for watching. Catch you again.